Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, Megalopolis has come out. It has not made a lot of money at the box office. It is considered a flop, one of the biggest flops of the year, and one of the biggest flops probably in Hollywood history. But Coppola did The Godfather, and his legacy is secure because people consider The Godfather and Godfather Part 2 the greatest films in history, pretty much. I mean, technically, I think the greatest film of last century, which they're both in the same century, was Citizen Kane. That was widely considered to be the greatest film ever. It's not the greatest film, but it was the first great film. And Godfather is a great film. But it's not... I personally don't find it that interesting. I think it's kind of boring. And I've been meaning to... I watched it years ago and I was like, really? This is The Godfather? This is what everyone's going on about? I found it really boring. And I bought it on DVD because I thought, you need to watch it again. You need to understand what's so great about this film because the whole world can't be wrong. You know, it must be the greatest film ever. It must be great. And what I've come to realise, which I mentioned in my video about Megalopolis, but I wanted to talk about it here just separately, is people usually view films through their own life. And because, you know, the patriarchy runs everything, and this is a very patriarchal film about masculine politics and family and respect and all this rubbish that people respect and think matter because in their world it matters, to people outside of that world, outside of, you know, the mafia and the political and religious institutions, it really means nothing. It's really not that important. If you're a gay person or a woman who, you know, doesn't have any real connection or investment in those sort of things because you see yourself very separate from those things. You don't see yourself as part of the patriarchy. You see it as something that's, you know, against you, that you have to that you're outside of and victimized by. You're not going to revere this film. And if you don't believe in religion, you don't believe in all the things that this film sort of revels in, and artistry-wise, yes, it's a great film, but story, subject is not that interesting to people outside of that world. But because, you know, the patriarchy runs everything, and it's basically about essentially that, the Italian sort of, you know, side of it, the mafia side of it, it gets a lot more respect than it probably deserves. If people were looking at it objectively as purely just a film, it'd rate pretty highly, but it wouldn't rate this highly. It's the subject, it's the legacy, it's the legend, and I just find that really weird because people don't look at it objectively as art, and when people look at like best ofs and greatest hits and, you know, all these lists of the best songs or the best artists or the best films or the best TV shows or whatever, usually people are just viewing it from their own perspective. Like, and if I was like that, I'd be like, well, Queer as Folk is the greatest, you know, show ever made, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's the same thing. It's like me saying Queer as Folk is the greatest TV series ever made because, you know, it's my life. And that's what these people are saying, like, oh, well, this is my life as a straight patriarchal man with, you know, conventional religious beliefs and everything and some ethnicity or whatever, that this is the greatest film ever. It's just, no. So, yeah, I'm going to sit down and watch them, partly because he re-edited Part 3, and I never understood why people hated 3, because I found Part 3 is just as boring, as dull as 1. I sat down and watched all 3 films, and like, it was a chore. And I don't understand why Part 3 is seen as different or worse or bad or something. I never understood why. I just feel like the legacy was already secured, and then people looked at this and they couldn't like include it because they'd already sort of created this legend, and they couldn't add anything to it. It seemed, is the way it sort of seemed to me. But I'm going to watch them all again, and partly because, like I said, he re-edited Part 3 and now it's referred to as Coda or something. And there's a few extra scenes included, a few things omitted, some things are reorganised, and I would like to watch all 3 films and then watch Coda to see if there's any difference. Now, it may be a chore, but I do feel I owe it to cinema to do this because I need to really understand what it is about this film people love, and why this sort of bias has sort of, you know, elevated this film to one of the greatest films ever in people's minds and so forth. But I just want to talk about that for a minute because basically film is an art form that people don't really understand and appreciate, particularly reviewers. They're only really able to look at it through literary terms and anything outside of, story, plot, script, and the actual subject being conventional, acceptable social norms, they can't really look at anything past that and value anything past that. And often films that we're told films are bad or bad writing, it's because they deviate from what these people see as the ideal or the norm or what's acceptable or whatever. So, yeah, a lot of great shows and great movies don't get the credit they deserve because they don't fit into the patriarchal, socio-religious sort of norms and everything. So I just want to talk about that for a minute as an issue, as a thing. And I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of, film as an art form and people not being able to look at it objectively and bringing all their issues into it and how that affects, how films are viewed and reviewed and reviewed.